Hey guys, Gijoe here. Welcome back to my bunker in Atlanta. Today's video on the BBR series is dealing with Sire Blood's map. Now, I did a video about printing this map earlier, and I will put that video in the link, a link to that video rather, in the description of this video. But I wanted to talk to you today about some of the things about this map that are different than the out-of-box map, okay? So let's take a look here. First of all, as you can tell, the color palette is different. Now, although it might look kind of bland a little bit right now, because it's very muted and neutral, it actually looks fantastic. And on the camera that I'm looking at right now, it doesn't look as vibrant as you see in person. But one reason I like the color of this map is that no matter what piece you put on here, the pieces really pop, whether it's the China green, the Anzac colors, okay? And it makes it really easy to find your pieces. So for instance, let's go over here as Japan. You know, if you've got Japan, you've got your orange. I mean, the pieces absolutely pop. Of course, this looks a little bit darker on the video than actually in person, but so what's different, of course, is in the out-of-box map, some of the pieces kind of blend in to the map, like the orange of Japan kind of blends into the orange of their territories. So it makes it hard to kind of see where all your pieces are. But when you're looking at this map and you just see a sea of orange, it's very easy to see where your borders are for each nation because it's based upon the color. So your eyes are drawn to the color of the pieces as opposed to the color of the map, so it doesn't confuse you. The other thing about this map is, if you notice, it does not have any starting borders. So like, you know, here on the end, like Japan starts here. Well, there's no border here. And the reason being is, as soon as Japan does J1, the border is going to change. And the border will be based upon where the Japan pieces are. So that border that's on the out-of-box map, even though it looks kind of cool and vibrant, it only works for the very first opening set. As soon as the game starts, all the borders change. So I kind of like the fact that there are no colored borders for each nation, because that kind of can maybe kind of confuse things at times, okay? So that's the color palette. It's kind of a neutral, cream, tannish color. But let's talk about a few other things on the map other than color. Of course, there are some new emblems here, some symbols. One you see is shipyard. And there are shipyards in various locations all across the map. I'm not going to show you all of them, but I'll talk about shipyards in a subsequent video. I'm not going to do that now, but they're all over the map. You know, you got some in Japan, you've got over here in the United States, right? You've got one down here in India. Okay, it's basically where the major capitals are. Those are shipyards, okay? You also have a Lend-Lease icon. Now that will help. The Lend-Lease icon deals with getting aid to Russia, both in the Atlantic and the Pacific theater, in Europe and in Asia, of course. And there'll be a separate video dealing with the Lend-Lease rule with Russia. So I just want you to know that that icon is on the map and it is different. Also, this size of this map is the same size as out-of-box, but what Sire has done is he's made Europe a lot larger, and he's made Africa smaller, even though technically Africa is a larger continent in real life. But since not a lot of battles occur down here, he's made this smaller. Therefore, it gives room to make Europe larger, since that's where a lot of the battles happen, so you can get more pieces there. And yet you can still keep the same out-of-box size if you like, as far as size of the map. There are some IPC changes. For instance, one is Malta. Malta is worth 1. It's a pretty important island. And in order to keep all the IPCs the same, for starting, you know, just like out of box, he has taken that IPC from the Gold Coast. So all he did was move the 1 IPC from Gold Coast to Malta, because this island is important, especially for one of his victory points, which we'll talk about later. And it's not that important for Gold Coast, so he just shifted it to there, okay? Everything else here is the same as far as IPC values. However, you'll notice right here some of the territories are different. Only in name, okay? The borders are all the same here. There are the same amount of territories in North Africa, but you know, Sire wants to be a little bit more historically correct, and so he has named this Italian Libya, the city of Tobruk, okay, and then Egypt, the city of Al Alamein, and then Egypt, to kind of go along with some major battles in World War II, rather than Alexandria, right? That was not a battle in World War II. If you also notice in his map, he's done this all throughout every continent, is he's put just a little bit of cities, some historical cities, Tobruk, El Alamein, Tunis, right? Some different cities, especially you know, capitals, etc. Athens, places also where major battles were fought. You know, Kiev, Battle of Kursk, you know, those kinds of things. So, and just nothing for gameplay necessarily, but just for more historical accuracy. So he did add some cities. One thing in the Middle East that has changed from out of box is that all of these territories here in the Middle East are pro-Axis, and that is historically accurate. In fact, that's why the Soviet Union came down and actually attacked the Middle East, is because they were pro-Axis and not pro-allies. So I think in out of box, I think Iran, which is Persia, at least it's Persia in outer box, he changed it to Iran because that's what it was called during World War II, and it is pro-Axis. So no longer can the United Kingdom just come in and grab these guys. They have to actually battle and fight them, which is more historic. Okay, they didn't just walk in and take this kind of stuff. Again, a lot of research has gone in by Sire to make sure that these things are historically accurate. Of course, this is all based on 1940. Okay, I know things have changed from 1941 to 42 to 43, but this map is set at 1940, okay, for the most part. So that is that. Now, some Russia names. Of course, here in the middle, you see Russia, the city of Moscow, Russia, the city of Smolensk. Smolensk was not a territory. It was a city. So he's, you know, this is still Russia, but it's the city of Smolensk. So that might get a little bit confusing, but so because you have Russia, 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 Russia. But it is Russia, city of Smolensk, Russia, city of Bryansk, Rostov, Stalingrad, etc. So again, that's just it's not for gameplay necessarily. It's just to be a little bit more historically accurate. Okay. Of course, you see right here, you see some China mountains. Now on out of box, you see the Great Himalaya Range, which is impassable. But there was also a mountain range, the Tian Shan Pass here, and this mountain range was passable by infantry. Okay, infantry did go back and forth between here, and so we'll talk about the mountain pass rule later on. But this mountain pass is here, and you can see that there is a way to get from China to Russia. This little pass here, we'll talk about that again later in the China/Russia video. Okay, something that's kind of obvious. You may see the Trans-Siberian Railway that goes from Moscow all the way to Amur. All right. And that is there so that Russia can get some pieces back and forth, and we'll talk about the specifics of that in the Russia video. All right, that plays out pretty well actually. Let's see here. We also have, talk about the China mountains, some China values. Now, if you notice, he has taken the IPC value away from Kansu and Qinghai. Okay, but China is still worth 12 IPCs if you conquer all of it. What he's done is he's taken the Qinghai IPC value and put it into Sichuan. He's taken the Kansu IPC and put it in Kwaichao. So, in other words, if Japan takes all of these territories and Xikang, they're going to get the 12 IPCs for China. Well, you may say, well, what a ripoff. So then what is the incentive for Japan to keep going and taking these two? Well, one, you kill the Chinese pieces so they can't come in here. But two, if you take the last two territories, you get an additional 10 IPC national objective, which we'll talk about with Japan. All right, and of course, the implication here is with these now at 2 each, that means Japan can put an industrial complex there if they take those territories. We'll talk about that later during the Japan video, okay? That really helps in the conquest of China for Japan, especially in a short game. So let's see what else we have here. Okay, an IPC value change. Dutch New Guinea is 1. I think it was 0 before, if I'm not mistaken, in out of box. We also have an IPC change down here in New South Wales in Sydney. This has an IPC value of 3. In out of box, I think it's 2. And that is for a specific reason, which we will talk when we talk about Australia rules and building complexes and capital ships. We'll talk about in a subsequent video. Also, you'll see that there are some oil derricks here. There are actually 10 of them on the map. There's 5 in Europe, 1 in Romania. Caucasus is 2, Iran is 3, Iraq is 4, Saudi Arabia 5. And then you have the islands, which is where oil resources were in the Pacific. 1 Sumatra, 2 Java, 3 Borneo, Celebes 4, and then Dutch New Guinea 5. We'll talk about that. That has to do with a victory point, which we'll talk about later. And of course, we have some resources. We have a resource logo emblem right here. In Western Ukraine, 1 in Ukraine, 1 in Caucasus. There's 1 in the Urals, and there's 1 in Siberia. And that also has to do with some victory points, which we will talk about in a subsequent video. Talked about Sydney and Mongolia. Of course, Mongolia, these here in this territory, Olgi, I guess, that will be 2 cavalry that will be placed there. In Buyant, 2 cavalry as well. So if the Mongolian rule, which is out of box still in the BBR rule, if the Mongolian rule is activated, then you have 2 infantry will be activated here, 1 in each territory, and then 2 cavalry here, 2 cavalry here. So that is something that Japan has to definitely consider, because cavalry can be a mess, which we'll talk about in the China-Russia videos. All right. And the last thing, which is a little bit obvious here, if you see, is he's created a second sea zone called Sea Zone 6A, and it does border the northern territory of the main island of Japan, and encircles Hokkaido, and there is a kamikaze symbol there and a convoy symbol. And incidentally, there is an IPC change here because Japan was normally 8, so he's taken 1 away to put Hokkaido worth 1. The main island of Japan is worth 7. Okay, and we'll talk about the implications of that in a subsequent video with Japan and maybe even the United States video. All right. So those are the major changes. In fact, those are all the changes, unless I'm missing something here, that are on this map as opposed to the out-of-box map. Now, again, you don't have to have this map in order to play Bloodbath rules. If you wanted to make these changes, you know, take a piece of tape and change this IPC to 3, take a piece of tape and kind of tape off this C zone. I mean, tape some type of rail going across, or just know that there is a rail going from Moscow to Amur. You know, again, you don't have to print this map, but I can tell you, for 20 bucks for the file, you're going to get the file of this map, and then you can print it however you choose. I will put the link to the video I made on how to print this map if you're interested in this in the description box of this video. I printed it at Office Max, depending on the coupon, you know, that they give out coupons all the time, but I think I printed it somewhere between 60 and 80 bucks. And the great thing, and then I sealed it with a coat, which the video I'll post in the description box here will show you how I did that. But the great thing is, like I said, for 20 bucks, you get this map file. You can print it as many times as you want. And if he does any updating, like if he adds more cities to this, or if he does anything else to this map in the future, you will get that file for free. It's part of that $20 fee. So to me, it's well worth the 20 bucks. So, and also in that, if you're an out-of-box player, you will get in that file the out-of-box map, but in this color scheme. So you're essentially getting 2 map files for 20 bucks. Can't beat that, all right? So I had the out-of-box map in this color scheme and this Bloodbath map in this color scheme, okay? So, like I said, this is definitely worth the investment. I'll put a link in the description. If you're interested in purchasing this map, you can do so by following the link in the instructions. And also, you want to check out sireblood.com. I think his website should be up and running in November, and I think you'll be able to purchase this map file or maps, perhaps even pre-printed, if you're interested, off of his website, okay? Well, hopefully that clears up any questions that you had about the map for Bloodbath, created by Sireblood, and all I can say is, now you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Gijoe!